During a live broadcast, former President Donald Trump stunned the panel and audience by revealing a shocking truth about House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. What he disclosed left the studio in disbelief, exposing a secret Jeffries never wanted the public to know. It was supposed to be a routine afternoon. The audience was engaged, and the panel of journalists was ready to challenge the 47th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump. The air was tense, but no one knew what was coming. Trump sat calmly, his hands folded. The host made a joke about current events, trying to lighten the mood. The room chuckled, but Trump didn't smile. He leaned toward the microphone, looked directly into the camera, and said quietly, "There's something the American people deserve to know." The room stilled. No one moved. He continued, his voice steady. "Hakeem Jeffries has been involved in activities that target the very foundations of our democracy. Not just any activities, but ones that undermine public trust and stability." Gasps filled the studio. The host dropped his pen. "You mean he's been involved?" a reporter asked, stunned. Trump nodded. "I have proof, and it's worse than anyone thinks." Silence. Chills ran through the room. Outside the studio, America was watching. The panel didn't know what to say. Even the toughest reporter, known for grilling presidents, sat pale and speechless. The camera panned across the audience. Some had tears in their eyes. Others were holding their breath, hands clasped tightly in their laps. President Trump remained calm, his voice low but firm. "I never wanted to bring this out publicly," he said, "but enough is enough. Our cities are suffering, our people are scared, and it's not random." He reached into his suit pocket and pulled out a small folder. A red tab peeked out. "This," he said, tapping it, "is just the beginning." The host leaned in. "Mr. President, if this is true..." Trump stopped him. "It is true. Hakeem Jeffries has used his influence to create chaos, and the targets aren't accidental. He's tried to destroy anyone who stands in the way of his control, especially those who represent freedom and innovation." A woman in the audience began to cry. A man held his wife's hand. This wasn't politics anymore. This was betrayal. When the cameras went off for a break, whispers filled the studio. But Trump wasn't done. He looked at the stunned panel. "I'm staying," he said. "America needs to hear the rest." The producer nodded, eyes wide, unsure of what to do next. When they came back on air, Trump opened the red-tabbed folder. Inside were documents, emails, and photos. He held one up. It showed a group of people being handed cash in a parking garage. In the corner of the photo, a man wearing a hat was barely visible. It was Hakeem Jeffries, paid chaos, masked and hidden, Trump said, all to silence the voices of truth. The host's hand trembled as he took the photo. But why? Why target these specific groups? Trump looked into the camera again. Because they represent freedom. They can't be controlled. And some people fear that more than anything. Tears ran down the cheeks of an elderly man in the front row, a decorated Marine named Carl. He had served in multiple wars and watched friends die to protect the flag he wore on his jacket. Now tears streamed down his face. "I fought for this country," he whispered. "And now this." The photo hit social media, and within minutes, the world exploded. America would never be the same. The camera zoomed in on Carl. He stood up slowly, everyone watching. "Mr. President," he said, his voice trembling. "You speak the truth. I've seen the lies grow like weeds, but never like this." Trump nodded gently. "That's why I had to speak up, Carl. For people like you." Carl sat back down, wiping his eyes. Across America, people were watching. Veterans, nurses, truck drivers, single moms. In homes everywhere, tears were falling because it wasn't just a story. It felt like a betrayal of everything they believed in. The host struggled to speak. "Mr. President, do you have more proof?" Trump looked at the folder again. "I have enough to wake up this entire country," he said. "And I haven't even opened the second envelope yet." The air in the room turned ice cold. The second envelope was yellowed at the corners, slightly torn. Trump held it in both hands, almost like it was fragile. "This was mailed to me anonymously," he explained. No return address, no signature, just one word written across the front. Truth. He slowly opened it. Inside were 4 photographs. Trump placed them on the table one by one. The panel leaned in. The first showed a man dragging a crate marked cash into a basement in D.C. The second was a protest poster printed before the actual protest had even been announced publicly. The third was chilling. It showed 2 masked men setting fire to a storefront. In the background was a black SUV. And inside the SUV, a man who looked exactly like Hakeem Jeffries holding a phone, smiling. The final photo was the most shocking. A spreadsheet with names, payments, locations, labeled suppression strategy. Gasps filled the air. The host's voice cracked. "Mr. President, are you saying he's organizing the violence?" Trump didn't blink. "I'm saying he's fueling it, planning it, funding it." The audience sat in stunned silence, and across the nation people wept, not from fear, but from heartbreak. After the commercial break, the cameras cut to the audience. A woman in the 3rd row raised her hand. "Please," she said softly. "May I speak?" The host hesitated, then nodded. She stood, trembling. "My name is Maria. My son David was a store clerk in Seattle. He was beaten unconscious during one of those so-called protests. He still can't walk without help." Her voice cracked. "We were told it was just random angry youth. But now I see the photos, the planning, the names." She covered her mouth with one hand and sobbed. Trump looked at her with compassion in his eyes. He rose from his chair and walked to her. The studio was dead silent. He gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "I'm so sorry for what they did to your son," he said. "That's why I'm exposing this. Not for me, for him. For every mother like you." Maria fell into Trump's arms, sobbing uncontrollably. The camera zoomed in on the moment, and America watched, crying with her. This wasn't politics anymore. It was personal, and the truth was just beginning to spill out. That moment when Maria sobbed in Trump's arms was replayed on every news network within minutes. Even the networks that never aired Trump uncensored clips went viral. Mothers across the country shared their stories, sons, daughters, names, photos of family members hurt in the chaos. America wasn't arguing anymore. It was grieving. Back in the studio, the atmosphere was completely different. No more jokes, no more smirks. Even the panelists were teary-eyed. The host wiped his eyes, then asked, "Mr. President, if this is all true, why hasn't anyone spoken out until now?" Trump sat down slowly, his voice calm. "Because they were scared and some were paid to stay quiet. But I've had enough, and the people have had enough." He lifted one final document from the folder. It was a list, handwritten with code names, cities, transfer amounts. At the bottom it read, Operation Shadow Street. The host froze. "I've heard of that. Rumored, but it was dismissed." Trump nodded. "It's real, and it's funded by names you wouldn't believe." The air grew heavy because suddenly, this wasn't just about Jeffries anymore. This was bigger, much bigger. Behind the cameras, the studio's lead producer was panicking. His earpiece buzzed nonstop. Network executives were calling in, demanding. He cut the segment. "Now wrap it up," they barked. "End it before it goes further." But the producer, Mike, did something no one expected. He turned off his mic, then he whispered to the floor manager, "Let it roll. The people need to hear this." He looked through the glass at President Trump. Mike had grown up in a tough neighborhood and always wondered why no one did anything about the violence. Now he knew, and for the first time in years, he felt something inside him break. He pressed the intercom. "Camera 2, stay tight on Trump. We're going full broadcast." Back on air, Trump was holding a blurry photo. "I'll read this quote," he said, his voice low. "From an insider who sent this to me last week. If they ever find out what Jeffries is funding behind closed doors, it'll tear the country in half." Trump paused. "I'm not trying to tear the country in half," he said. "I'm trying to save it." The studio producer wiped away a tear. He knew what was coming would change everything. Trump held a torn piece of notebook paper. The handwriting was messy, rushed. "This," he said, "was written by a woman who worked inside the payment office. She didn't give her name. She said she was too afraid, but she wanted the world to know the truth." He began reading. "I saw the payouts. I saw the fake names. I saw the maps of cities, each circled in red. I asked questions and was told to stay quiet, but I couldn't sleep at night. I have 2 kids. I kept thinking, what if one of them is caught in the fire? I helped plan. I had to speak." Trump's voice cracked slightly. The room was silent. Then he looked up. "She said they were told to target peaceful cities to create fear, to make it look like everything was out of control, so people would beg for more government control." A woman in the back started crying hard. Another audience member walked out, hand over mouth, stunned. People at home wept, shared the video, called their families. This wasn't just a headline anymore. It was a secret that touched every heart in the nation. And Trump was just getting started. Just as Trump finished reading the whistleblower's letter, a quiet voice came from the audience. "I believe her," a man said. He stood slowly, tall, thin, wearing an old maintenance uniform. "I used to clean floors in the Capitol. I wasn't supposed to hear anything, but walls are thin." Everyone stared. The cameras turned to him. "I remember the name Shadow Street. I saw it on a whiteboard once late at night. Men in suits laughed about it. I thought it was some secret joke." He looked down. "Then I saw payments. Bags moved into unmarked vans. Late-night meetings. And once I saw Hakeem Jeffries walk out of a basement room and say, 'Let the fire burn.' It makes the cameras roll." Gasps filled the studio. The janitor's voice shook. "I told my wife, but she said to forget it. I tried. But when I heard what happened to that boy in Seattle, I knew I couldn't stay quiet." Trump walked toward the young man and shook his hand. "You did the right thing," he said. The janitor nodded, tears in his eyes. America was watching. And for the first time in years, people believed again. Truth was winning. That night, after the studio lights dimmed and the crew packed up, Trump sat in his hotel suite staring at the city skyline. He wasn't celebrating. He wasn't posting online. He was thinking alone. The janitor's words echoed in his mind. "Let the fire burn. It makes the cameras roll." He opened a small leather notebook and jotted a single sentence. "Expose them all, but protect the innocent." He glanced at a photo on his desk, his child smiling at a 4th of July parade. Trump whispered, "I'm doing this for your future." At 2:00 a.m., he called an old friend. "We need to talk privately, in person." "You saw it all?" the friend asked. "I did, but there's more, and I think your name's next." A long silence. "I'll be on the next flight," the friend said, "whatever it takes." Trump hung up and looked out the window again. He didn't feel powerful. He felt responsible. The truth had been spoken, but the battle for America's soul had just begun, and time was running out. By sunrise, the friend's private jet touched down in D.C. He didn't bring cameras, no press, just one black bag and a serious look. Trump met him at a secure location near the Capitol. No aides, no phones. Just them. "I got your message," the friend said. "I'm ready." Trump placed a manila folder on the table. Inside were more photos, more bank records. One with the friend's own face, circled in red. "You were next," Trump said. "They wanted to destroy you, your companies, your credibility, because you couldn't be bought." The friend scanned the documents. "And who's behind it?" Trump stared at him. "Hakeem Jeffries and others, but he's the centerpiece." The friend looked down, his face serious. "And the protests, funded, orchestrated, all a distraction?" Trump said, "While our economy and freedom are slowly ripped apart." The friend leaned back, hearty. "My mom called me crying last night," he said. "She said she couldn't take watching the violence anymore." Trump nodded. "We need to end it together." The friend extended his hand. For America, he said. Trump shook it. The alliance was formed, and the clock was ticking. The world was about to witness something they'd never forget. While Trump and his friend spoke privately back at the studio, the panel replayed one of the most haunting photos from Trump's folder, the SUV, the man inside, the face half hidden in shadows. The producer zoomed in, enhancing the image. A sharp intake of breath followed. It really is him, the host whispered. Hakeem Jeffries. No doubt, no mistake. But what shocked everyone wasn't just his presence, it was what he was holding. A phone with a live video feed of the protest outside a courthouse in Minneapolis. The same protest that ended with a disabled veteran being dragged into the street. A young tech staffer in the studio cried, "That was my uncle. I saw that on the news." The room froze. He wasn't even protesting, he was walking to the pharmacy. Her voice cracked. People across America watched the replay. Many for the first time they saw the violence. And now they saw the man who watched it live and let it happen. It wasn't just about corruption anymore. It was personal, deep, painful. America was beginning to understand the full weight of the betrayal, and the storm wasn't over yet. As the footage played on national television, letters began flooding into the White House. One stood out. It came from an elderly farmer in Iowa, written in shaky handwriting. Trump read it aloud during a quiet moment at the Oval Office. "Dear Mr. President, my name is Harold. I'm 82. I've lived on this farm since I was 9. I watched my wife cry last night after seeing that interview. I haven't seen her cry like that since my boy didn't come home from Vietnam. Thank you for telling us the truth. We knew something was wrong, but we felt small, powerless. You gave us a voice again. You gave us hope. God bless you, Harold Jenkins, Greene County, Iowa." Trump folded the letter carefully, then without a word, placed it in his inside coat pocket. He stared out the window again, this time with tears in his own eyes. Behind him, a military aide stood respectfully. "You okay, Mr. President?" Trump nodded slowly. "I just never realized how many people were hurting in silence," he said. But now that silence was turning into something louder than fear. Hope. In the quiet security room where Trump and his friend met, the folder was now empty. All the documents were on the table. The friend stared at one line in particular. "Push for digital blackout on all Musk-linked content." "Why?" he whispered. "Why target me like this?" Trump's voice was steady. "Because you gave power back to regular people through crypto, through X, through truth." The friend shook his head slowly. "I didn't want to be a target. I just wanted to build." He looked away, his eyes glassy. For a long moment he said nothing. Then quietly, he broke down. His shoulders trembled. Silent tears fell. Trump placed a hand on his back. "You've carried a heavy load," he said. "But now we carry it together." The friend nodded, wiping his face. "We can't let this continue. We have to show the world." Trump smiled just a little. "That's the plan." And in that small room, two men, with very different lives, made one promise. They would fight not with anger, but with truth. And the time to speak louder than ever was now. While Trump and his friend planned their next move, the video clips from the interview were being shown in schools across the country. In a 10th grade history class in Ohio, the teacher, Mrs. Reynolds, played the footage of Maria crying in Trump's arms and the veteran Carl standing to speak. 25 students sat silently, even the loud ones. One student, Ethan, raised his hand slowly. "My dad works nights at a gas station. He was hurt last year in one of those so-called protests. They told him it was just random angry youth. But now I see the photos, the planning, the names." He paused. "But what if it wasn't?" Mrs. Reynolds nodded gently. "That's why the truth matters." Another student, Mia, wiped her eyes. "Why would someone in power pay people to hurt others?" No one answered. Then from the back of the room, a boy who never spoke whispered, "Because some people only care about control." That day, not a single student played on their phones. No one talked during lunch. They sat together quietly, trying to understand the pain they saw on screen. America's children were watching. And for the first time, they weren't just learning history, they were living it. In a small apartment just outside Chicago, Nurse Angela Thompson sat curled up on her couch after a night shift. She hadn't slept. She couldn't. She'd watched the full interview twice, then again on her phone during her bus ride home. The part that broke her was the janitor's voice. "Let the fire burn. It makes the cameras roll." Angela had worked through the worst nights of protest chaos in 2023. She remembered pushing a gurney through a crowd to save a teenage girl who'd been trampled. She remembered the tear gas, the screams, the fear. And now she was hearing it was planned. She broke down. Her sobs filled the empty room. She wasn't crying for herself. She was crying for every patient she couldn't save, every person injured by violence that never had to happen. She grabbed her phone and typed a message on a nurse forum. "Please watch Trump's interview. I don't care who you voted for. Just watch it. I think we were all lied to." Dozens responded. So many nurses shared their stories that the thread crashed the app. The truth was spreading, and the hearts of those who lived through it were finally being heard. By Thursday morning, Trump and his friends stood on the rooftop of a secured building. Below, reporters were gathering. A peaceful rally was being prepared. No stage, no fireworks, just 2 microphones. The friend leaned over. "You're sure about this?" Trump looked out at the early crowd forming. "People don't need a speech," he said. "They need the truth and someone willing to stand for it." A Secret Service agent approached. "Sir, the broadcast van is set. You're live in 10 minutes. Trump nodded. Then he did something rare. He pulled out a folded picture from his coat pocket. It was Harold's letter, the old farmer's note from Iowa. He stared at it for a moment, then whispered, "This is for all the Harolds." Behind him, his friend placed a hand on Trump's shoulder. "Let's do this." As the elevator doors opened, they stepped onto the ground level where cameras, journalists, and hundreds of citizens waited. No signs, no shouting, just people holding hands, praying, crying. It was the calm before a storm, not of violence, but of truth. And it was about to shake the nation. The crowd had grown. Thousands now stood shoulder to shoulder, holding nothing but photos, candles, and quiet prayers. There was no yelling, no signs, no politics, just people. One by one, they left letters at the gate. A photo of a brother, lost in a protest. A crumpled paycheck from a business destroyed. A note from a child that read, "Thank you for telling the truth. I'm not scared anymore." President Trump watched from the window, hand on the glass. He didn't smile. He didn't wave. He just stood there quietly, eyes locked on every flicker of light below. Behind him, an aide whispered, "Mr. President, what should we do next?" Trump turned, his voice calm. "We keep going. We restore what they tried to destroy." Later that night, he stepped outside, not with cameras, not with speeches, but with a single rose. He placed it by the gate among the candles and whispered for no one but the wind to hear. "This is for the forgotten." But they were forgotten no more. The following morning, something happened. No one expected. A handwritten letter appeared on X, signed simply, "A former insider." It read, "The files are real. I helped coordinate the payment networks. I'm done hiding. I'm ready to testify. Not everyone in power is corrupt." But enough of them were willing to hurt this country for control. President Trump didn't expose a scandal. He exposed a system. And I pray we never forget it. The internet exploded. The country gasped. And in homes across America, people cried. Not because they were afraid, but because they finally felt seen, heard, protected. For the first time in a long time, they believed again. Trump addressed the nation that night in a simple message. "This week wasn't about me. It was about you, about your stories, your pain, your hope. We're not done. We're just getting started. And I promise, no matter how hard it gets, I will never stop fighting for you." Tears, applause, a silence that spoke louder than any headline.